Welcome to the Agronomy and Farm Management Podcast. I'm Amanda.
And I'm Elizabeth. Thanks for joining us today.
March marks the 10-year anniversary of the 4R Nutrient Stewardship Program here in Ohio. If you haven't heard of the 4Rs yet, they are a globally recognized tool for nutrient management: the right source, right rate, right time, and right place. Aaron Heilers is the executive director of the program here in Ohio and is joining us today to share more about the program. Aaron, congratulations on hitting the 10-year mark.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So tell us, what is the 4R program? What was it designed to do?
So the 4R program is designed for agricultural retailers to become certified through a process of looking at their management records, how they interact with their customers, deliver education to their customers, and ultimately make recommendations on nutrients and make those applications, making sure that they're meeting the best management practices currently in the industry.
And what's the point of them doing that?
So it's a tool that the retail community can use to prove to their customers that they're doing the right thing for them, but also to the community at large, that as we talk about water quality, not just in the Western Lake Erie Basin, but all across Ohio, that ag retailers are again doing the right thing for the environment as well. So it's a multi-pronged approach of meeting the needs of their customers, but also meeting the needs of the environment.
That's an incredibly important story to tell. We know there's oftentimes confusion about what farmers are doing, and it's easy for someone who's unfamiliar with our practices to drive by. So having a program that's dedicated to getting the word out, and then also holding our retailers and our farmers accountable to make sure that we're following those best practices, I think is really important.
Yeah, and when they started 10 years ago, actually a little bit longer when the actual meetings started, it was right after the 2011 algal bloom on Lake Erie, which was the largest on record. That got all the stakeholders together to say, okay, we need to do something, and everybody was searching for what that thing was. And the ag retailers stepped up and said, okay, we're going to lead this effort. And so I think that was key, that they had the buy-in from the get-go of what this program could and should look like, and then reached out and worked with the environmental groups and university and government to craft the program to make sure that it was workable on the retail end, but also met the needs of the environmental community as well.
So Aaron, how many participants do you have in the program?
We are up to 56 certified facilities. Any facility that makes nutrient recommendations to their customers are eligible for the program. So if we look at one company that has 10 branches, maybe only 3 of those branches are actually the ones that are making the recs and applying the nutrients. Those are the ones that can be certified. So we have 56 facilities that meet that threshold now. We're obviously looking to grow that number and always interacting with those that are not certified and trying to figure out a way that we can meet their needs as well.
So can you walk us through how someone becomes certified?
Yes. So they can reach out to me. They can go to 4rcertified.org, or they can just call us at the Ohio Agribusiness Association office. Let us know that they're interested. They fill out their interest form and kind of tell us a little bit more about their company and what they do, so that we can see if they truly do fit the definition of certification. And then I'll come out and walk them through the audit process. We have currently 31 requirements that not all of them are applicable to every facility. So it's not a huge deal. They don't do certain things within their location. We walk through the requirements, make sure that they understand what those are, and what kind of records we're asking them to pull and get together for our auditor. And then once they are comfortable with that process, they pay a $600 application fee, and then we assign a third-party auditor to them. And that auditor then reaches out, makes those connections and asks for the records that they need. They look at their customer base, and then the auditor pulls a certain percentage of those records ahead of time so that he can kind of get a good handle on what the facility is doing before he goes into the facility and does a couple-hour audit at the facility. So that process happens, and then if there is any non-complies in that audit process, the facility has to do a corrective action plan. And it doesn't mean that you don't get certified. We have plenty of retailers that had things that they needed to work on for the next year's audit, but they were still able to get certified. The corrective action plan just is saying, okay, this is the issue. We know how we're going to address it, puts a timeline on it, and then they work towards achieving that timeline in the next year.
Yeah, it seems like you're really good working with people and helping them get to that point rather than, one misstep and you're denied from the program. And even once you get into the program and you have your checkups and things like that.
Yeah, it's a voluntary program. So I'm not in the business of trying to kick people out unless it's, really egregious stuff that, basic agronomic information that they should be collecting. Then we'll have a much deeper conversation if certification is right for them. But things happen. Employees change. That's probably the biggest thing. You have turnover of the guy that was handling the 4R program that moved on. Somebody else has taken it on, and something gets missed in that year before the next audit. So we really do try to work with them. And ultimately, again, it's led by ag retailers. We want them to be successful. I don't rule with an iron fist. It's about kind of raising everybody's game so that we're all at least a basic level of playing field.
Of course, you are aware I recently joined the board, and that's been really interesting for me to see behind the scenes and get to know the program. So there's just like one representative from kind of the main agencies, and then the rest are retailers or certified crop advisors who are in the program. So they're very practical. They're going through this as well. So it sets it up really nicely for, I guess, ease of access and getting into the program and understanding and all of that. You guys have done a nice job with that.
Yep. We have 11 members that serve on our Nutrient Stewardship Council, a couple from university research, a couple from nonprofit organizations, and then the rest have to be from ag business, ag retail. We do have a couple of farmers that sit on the board as well. So it's a nice blend of, again, what everybody's goals are. Everybody's coming at it from a different perspective, and having the retailers serve as the predominant members allows it still to be led by retailers. And so it's, it can be common sense. It can be workable of, we may have, something that's unattainable, a goal that environmental groups say we need to have this standard. Well, the retailers can say that's just not workable for our business. It doesn't mean we don't want to get there. We may not be there yet. So that's the beauty of our setup. And then we do have terms that, people can cycle through and get fresh ideas into the program to kind of keep it going.
So you shared about the audit process. Could you dig in to just a few of the practices that the program promotes that really help us improve our nutrient management?
So, it's nothing earth-shattering. I know a lot of retailers question whether they should be in the program. The basics are good soil testing methodologies, good soil test history, and then taking those soil tests and building recommendations that are current. So, you're not working off a nutrient rec that was written 4 years ago. It's keeping it every 2 years at a minimum. And then applying nutrients at the tri-state recommendations. And that's probably where we get our most heartburn, is everybody's got a little bit different understanding of the tri-state and feelings around it. And so that's the standard here in Ohio, and that's what we need to go off of. And that's where we're currently at with it. So there's that side of it where, the nuts and bolts of working with the grower on their nutrient recommendations and making sure those applications then match what the recommendation was. The other aspect of it is a little more educational, making sure that you're, as the retailer, communicating to your growers best management practices like subsurface placement of phosphorus when possible, that you're discussing with them, actually sitting down and discussing the nutrient recs with them and walking through that process and documenting it for the audit process, that yes, we've had these conversations using technology. That's kind of the last piece of the program. It's a tiered approach as you get into it, but the last couple of requirements are around using variable rate technology, making sure that you're doing soil testing the grid or zone level, not just taking whole field samples, making sure that you do have a history of soil test data on that field that you are working to build your nutrient recommendations off of. And so we start with the basics, kind of build retailers up to, again, raise their game on the technology front.
Yeah, I think one of the activities I've been involved with you guys recently is giving these retailers the opportunity to engage in research to help us improve some of that, our ability to make better recommendations.
Yes.
So I think that's even bringing it full circle where the tri-state is something that hopefully we can adapt to fit more scenarios more accurately through a partnership with your program.
Yes, we're currently looking at the potassium RECs within the tri-state. John Fulton at Ohio State is leading that effort along with the Nutrient Stewardship Council and asking retailers, hey, do you think that the potassium RECs are right for your region and your growers? It started because we were hearing feedback from retailers that didn't like where the RECs were leaving them, seeing declining potassium levels in their fields, feeling like they were leaving some yield on the table, and hearing that from their growers. And so they would shy away from becoming certified because we required meeting the tri-state on both P and K. And so we opened that discussion up with retailers and Ohio State and said, okay, what can we do to address this? And so last year we had our pilot project, 5 fields, 5 retailers looking at the protocol potassium and seeing if we could see yield benefits in different environments, both low yielding environments and high yielding environments, see if we could get a yield bump when potassium shouldn't have been applied according to the tri-state, but we did make an application. We're entering year 1 in 2024 and encouraging any retailer to reach out to us if they're interested in looking at that, because ideally we'll get a wide swath of fields across Ohio, different growing conditions, different soils, different management styles, and be able to pinpoint if there is a benefit to applying potassium at different rates outside of the tri-state. So long term, we are looking to adapt the tri-state on the potassium side if it's needed. And so again, to retailers, this program is adaptable. We're not just stuck in this is the way it's going to be. As we hit year 10 and look towards the future, we want to make sure that we're changing with the times as the science dictates.
That's great. Of course, Elizabeth and I being all about on-farm research, it's good to hear that, and I think that's what it's all about too. So can you share some success stories with us from this program?
Probably the one I hear most often is retailers say that they were doing a lot of these things anyways that we're asking them to do. It's helped them to streamline their process, improve their data management. Their record-keeping system might not have been what it is today without having to go through the 4R program and have to produce those records to a third-party auditor. That's the biggest value that we hear from retailers is, yeah, it's a pain. We've got to go get things ready. But gosh, 10 years ago, our records were over here and they were over here and they were, tucked under somebody's desk. Like they put them all into a good system that's helped them become more efficient. And that helps them become then more efficient with their growers, because that data is at their fingertips to be able to make better nutrient recommendations.
Yeah, that's great.
So as we reflect on the last 10 years, I want to hear what you see for the next 10 years of this program.
So H2 Ohio has come on the scene here in the last couple of years, and that's essentially we're trying to work hand in hand with H2 Ohio because along with H2 Ohio comes cost share dollars to the producer to do nutrient management plans. And so from an ag retail perspective, they do a lot of the work with the H2IO program, and we're trying to help amplify what they're doing so that the ag retailers can benefit financially from doing that work for H2 Ohio, as well as the customer or the farmer. And so that's kind of where we're looking is how can we streamline our process from the audit standpoint with H2 Ohio so that H2 Ohio delivers dollars to farmers. The retailers are doing a lot of the work, and H2 Ohio you have to comply with tri-state as well. So let's make that process easier for the retailers to become certified. That's really where we want to get to is you're already doing it for H2 Ohio, checking that box and meeting those recs. We're just, how can we come in on the backside, verify what we need to verify and lessen the burden on retailers all the way around. So that's here in the forefront in the next couple of years, especially as we expand the H2 Ohio program outside of the Western Basin. The education lift is going to be pretty great as we get into the Ohio River watershed because they haven't been faced with the water quality concerns like Western Lake Erie has been. It's not been in their face every day to think about how they're managing their farms. Not saying that they're not doing it correctly by any means. It's just, again, having it a little more in the forefront. So we hope to be included in that effort, especially on the educational front of delivering 4R materials to both the retail community and farmers in the Ohio River watershed, and then ultimately expanding the 4R program to those retailers as well that get them interested and on board with what we're doing.
This has been an issue that we've seen in Ohio as far as nutrient management goes, and I think that there are several of us moving in the right direction. This is a great program that does that research at Ohio State and with Ohio Department of Agriculture. Of course, the Ohio Agribusiness Association administering this for our Nutrient Stewardship Program. So I feel really good about the direction Ohio is moving. I think a lot of people do as well. And being outside of that Lake Erie watershed, I have a little bit different perspective and a little bit further away, but I'm proud of where we've gone over the last 10 years for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that the 4R program as we know it today started in Ohio. It started with the Fertilizer Institute. They developed that 4R concept many years ago, but the actual program was started here in Ohio and has become a model for other states. And the province of Ontario has also adopted basically our standards. And now they've tweaked them to their landscape and their customers as needed. But Ohio's been at the forefront of these water quality issues and how to deal with them. So yeah, as we move outside of the Western Basin, where we've been dealing with it for 10 to 15 years, it's sometimes refreshing. It might not be the right word, but to take a step back and have a little bit of perspective of how far we've come in a relatively short amount of time. And a lot of that is owed to the ag groups working well together and starting to collaborate with the environmental groups that, again, didn't see eye to eye with us on a lot of things, but they both figured out that we can get a lot more accomplished if we can work together on these things. And we may not always get what we want on both sides, but we're all working towards a common goal. You get outside of Ohio, it's not necessarily that way. Sometimes, unfortunately, even the ag groups disagree over which way they want to go, and that makes it hard then to get anything done. So I think Ohio is definitely a model of how we can work on these issues.
So to start to close out here, if our listeners are interested in learning more about the program, where should they look, and what are some opportunities coming up this summer to perhaps engage?
So they can go to 4rcertified.org. They can Google the 4R program. Ohio should come up. Look at our website and our resources. Again, there's 6 other states that have this program, but you can click on the Ohio tab and find my information to reach out to me. And it can just be a conversation to start with. It doesn't have to be a scary thing. Just had one reach out the other day that is interested, and talk it through and see if it's a good fit for your business. We also do a 4R technology review field day every year. This year is August 28th, and we'll be in the northeast part of Ohio at the Ohio State Wooster campus. And that's just opportunity for us to bring retailers and farmers in to see the latest technology in this space and again, have an opportunity to learn why the 4Rs, why that concept is important. That's one thing I've learned over 10 years now of the program being around for 10 years is we say the 4Rs like any other acronym. It just we need to step back and explain what it is a little bit. And it can be a lot broader of a topic than what some people give it credit for. So that's definitely an opportunity for people to come out and see programs all about.
Well, Aaron, congratulations again to you and to all of those who've been involved over the last 10 plus years as this was formed and got off the ground. A lot of great work, and we look forward to the next 10.
Thank you for having me on, but I want to make sure that the retail community, they've done the heavy lift. They've done the work. They do go through the audit process. So if you are a farmer listening to this, make sure that you talk to your retailers and ask if they're 4R certified, and if they are, thank them for what they're doing, because it's one more thing that they're doing on their customers' behalf. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Agronomy and Farm Management Podcast. Join us again in 2 weeks for our next episode.
Hey, podcast listeners. Just a reminder to give us a like or subscribe so you know when we release new episodes. If you're enjoying the podcast, be sure to leave us a review also. We appreciate the comments.